From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Now we are turning our attention to Portland, Oregon. Now, this is a cool place, Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you've heard anything about it. From a culture perspective within the United States, Portland has been one of those places that kind of is a trend setter in a lot of ways. Cities like it and New York and Los Angeles are places where I guess just trends are spawned a lot of times. Recently, in the past year or so, Portland, Oregon has been a bit of a flashpoint for some of the change that is attempting to come into the world socially here within the United States. And there have, across this country, there have been outpourings of support for the movement. Black Lives Matter and the movement to really shine a light on police brutality and killings. And in a lot of places in the country, support remains for these movements, but the active protesting has faded a bit to the background, where and that's not to say in every city. In places like Atlanta and cities across this country, there are still active protests going on. But in Portland, it has really never stopped, it seems. The fervor remains in the fight for change there. And very recently, even up until I believe it was mid-October, when there was some heavy movement going on with the protests and with actions taken by law enforcement against some of these protests. And what we're going to talk about today is a specific reaction to, I guess, to some of this. I don't know if you could characterize it as unrest, but I guess just I don't know. It's weird. It's almost like negative vibes. So all of that is to set up our traveling to Portland, Oregon right now to read a story from the Oregonian that we've been going to a lot lately, or Oregon Live. And this was posted on Halloween, October 31st, 2020. Here's the headline. Portland, San Francisco archbishops perform exorcisms following protests.
Checks out.
Huh? You may think. So exorcisms on individuals, perhaps? No. This is an exorcism that was performed essentially on the city, or the people as a whole of the city of Portland, Oregon, following these protests that occurred that have been occurring for many months now in Portland. So let me just jump down to the meat of this article and tell you what it says. In Portland, Oregon, Archbishop Alexander Sample led a procession of more than 200 people to a city park on October 17th, offered a prayer, then conducted a Latin exorcism rite intended to purge the community of evil. The event followed more than 4 months of racial justice protests in Portland, mostly peaceful, but sometimes fueling violence and riots. Again, those are the words of the Oregonian. So this is a really interesting concept to me, and it's not something that I have encountered before. We've covered exorcisms on this show many a time, but never the concept of exorcising evil within a community in general, or as a whole, rather than an individual who is supposedly affected by an evil spirit that would need to be exorcised.
I guess I think about like maybe a cleansing ritual, or like taking sage, or smudging a space perhaps, but certainly not like an entire city. That's wild.
It's certainly new for me, but we're going to get into it a little bit further. But let's remember that happening in Portland, Oregon on October 17th. We also need to know that on October 17th in San Francisco, California, a different archbishop, Salvatore Cordileone, he performed an exorcism outside of a Catholic church in San Rafael, where protesters had earlier toppled a statue of Father Junipero Serra. So again, this one is interesting to compare to the other, right? Because in San Francisco, the rite is specifically to exorcise the evil out of the people who would cause a blasphemous act, such as toppling the statue of someone important to the church within that area. And the other one in Portland, Oregon, is to exorcise the evil, whatever it is that's causing that amount of distress between individuals, between fellow man, I'm assuming. And you can read more about it in a couple of places. There's one called Catholic Sentinel, where you can actually watch the procession that occurred in Portland, Oregon. You can hear brief interviews from people who were there. It's a fascinating thing. I just wanted to get your guys' opinions on it, I guess. What do you think about this kind of practice, and what do you think the goal is here with this?
Sure. Well, at the risk of sounding cynical, there are a couple things. We would like to think that the goal is to bring some sort of spiritual balance. I would say we have talked about, okay, so exorcism itself in the Catholic sense is very brand name, and it has very specific rituals. But we have to remember multitudes of other faiths practice something very much like this. You may have, in a way, practice something like exorcism when you move into a new house and you burn sage, which they call smudging, right? That is you, if you believe in this process, purifying that space. So it's not too dissimilar, but it is incredibly unusual for the Catholic Church to officially co-sign this kind of thing. The cynical part would say that all religion is about social control. So this could be a reassuring thing to some members of the faithful in those respective cities, in Portland and San Francisco. I believe it's either the Oregonian or another, maybe the AP report mentions an incident that's similar to this in 2015 in Mexico, right?
Well, I guess it's similar, but it's larger scale. That one was carried out. I don't know. I don't have the specifics on who carried out that particular exorcism in Mexico, but allegedly it was to expel demons nationwide. And they were responding to levels of violence within the country, and specifically against crimes of drug cartels, as well as the practice itself of abortion. Yikes. That's interesting stuff. But yeah, I know, I totally hear you with, exorcisms are far and wide used. It's a process that is used in many religions, many faiths. I guess it's just the concept of expelling the evil in a massive area. It's almost like a area. I'm thinking of it.
Area of effect.
In terms of, yeah, like MMOs or RPGs.
Right.
Like you're casting a wide exorcism, and it's much higher level than an individual targeted exorcism.
Does that require more like powerful relics or like certain skill set? I'm not mocking here. I'm really wondering like what how does.
Well, it's interesting because they're very similar rites that are read, and the who was the gentleman, Archbishop Alexander Sample, he specifically conducted it in the Latin language, and he remarked, this is Cordileone who did the exorcism in San Francisco. He said, Latin tends to be more effective against the devil because he doesn't like the language of the church. Fascinating stuff. And again, that's personal belief.
Sure.
That's personal belief, and it's shared by, countless people on this planet right now. It's not our place to say that is right or wrong. It's just a fascinating concept that in 2020, this would still be done and this practice would still be done. And then Oh, what was the other thing? It reminded me of exercising a house rather than exercising a person, right? And like you were talking about cleansing rituals, smudging, using sage or something, but using the exorcism rite to do that rather than other methods.
And
isn't that sort of what happens in
And this was a
Poltergeist?
major rite, right? Yes, exactly. This house is clear. So this is a major exorcism, not a minor exorcism. I think a lot of
Correct.
non-Catholics get a little confused there. A minor exorcism is it can be thought of like a purification ritual that you would encounter as a safeguard, maybe like during a baptism. I believe it's often a baptismal rite is often referred to as a minor exorcism, but this would be the major form, the idea of the expulsion of demons. And to the question about high level exorcisms, the major exorcisms do have to have the green light from the church, from the Vatican. You have to be a bishop, I think, or you have to have a bishop explicitly grant you as a priest permission to conduct a major exorcism. But hold on, you might be saying, how does this apply to cities that are not 100% Catholic? You know what I mean? There are multitudes of faiths in these large areas. The one thing I could find is that the way I understand it, priests are, in some extenuating circumstances, allowed to conduct exorcisms on people who are Christian, but not themselves Catholic. Is that correct?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis when it comes to that. At least my understanding is that you're talking about getting permission from a bishop, and generally it is on someone of the Catholic faith. But if it is not someone of the Catholic faith, it's almost like an arrangement has to be made. And the person probably needs to believe in some denomination of Christianity.
Okay. I'm glad I'm on base there because, yeah, like I was saying, the extenuating circumstances seem to make it a case-by-case thing. And even if those folks in question are not themselves Catholic, the church's position is still remains the same, that someone can only get an exorcism or apply for an exorcism after they've been examined by medical professionals, possibly psychiatrists, things of that nature. So you can't just say, this house is unclean, someone exorcised me. You have to prove it.
And let's just, maybe this is stating the obvious, but the Vatican holds like conferences to train priests in the rite of exorcism. This is like an inextricably part of the Catholic faith. This isn't some rogue thing. It is absolutely a part of the tenets of Catholicism, at least at that high level.
Well, there's some weird stuff going on there, and I didn't want to go down this rabbit hole, but let me just tell you a little bit about a place called Pope Leo XIII Institute. This is a not-for-profit 501c charitable organization. It is a really strange thing that's located in Libertyville, Illinois, and you can go there, and if you are, I believe there are clergy-only classes that they offer, and then there are layperson classes and other classes that they offer, but it is specifically an exorcism curriculum that is taught here at this school, and it's generally done in four different essentially semesters or classes, 10-day periods, where you go and you learn about certain things. And I was going to read off some of this curriculum really quickly. And by the way, registration is closed for the 2020-2021 year. So sorry, everybody, if you're wanting to sign up.
Sorry for your ghosts. Sorry for your demons.
Apologies for that. There are 4 modules here. Demonology, angelology, foundations of exorcism within canon law, discernment of spirits, fascinating stuff. Psychological or demonic diagnosis, psychology of demons versus human psychology, demonic counterfeits, what is this? The Blessed Virgin Mary and the Exorcist, Satan and the Spiritual Life according to St. John of the Cross. There's all kinds of really I want to learn all that stuff. That sounds exciting to me.
But surely
learning
there's a
these.
prerequisite for even getting in, right? Other than just
Yes.
paying tuition.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you have
There's
to be a priest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which comes-
for some.
Which just so everybody knows, and this is not a ding on the priesthood, being a priest has some other lifestyle qualifications that are challenging to a lot of people. Everybody knows the one I'm talking about.
Wearing that white little collar thing, that seems like it would be constrictive.
Yeah, I think it has something else to do with the pants area.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Constricting elsewhere.
Yeah.
I see.
Um,
So no, I'm not really. No joke here. So there is no such thing as a sexually active priest. It is just part and parcel with. I mean, there is one, of course, but like if you get found out,
Different show.
it's bad news. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Well, there were
and
popes
also-
aplenty with illegitimate children.
yeah, and also there are some forward-thinking sects within the Catholic Church, maybe that have split off or are slightly on the fringes of the Catholic Church that have been making changes there. And if you are a member of one of those specific churches that has been forward thinking about some of this stuff, we'd love to hear from you. But one thing that is maybe not so forward thinking is that if you want to take these classes over a 2-year period, which is going to equate to about 40 days of your time, you have to pay $10,200 US. So
Ooh.
Why are they just making an even 10? Wait, what's the extra 2?
Wow.
For? You know, why don't they just round
Catering. Yeah, it looks like they want to exercise your wallet first. Jeez.
down?